Welcome to the Next Level Podcast, powered by San Manuel, a series connecting you with the best minds in casino, hospitality, tribal government, and beyond. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Next Level Podcast. I'm so excited because joining us today is a good friend and colleague, Chris Justice, who most recently served as the CEO of Pavilion Payment and has led that company through a massive amount of work, doing a carve out and some other great things that you're going to hear about today. Chris has tons of experience at the executive level and at the board level with over 20 years in gaming and in payments. And so joining me today is Chris. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Peter, I'm fantastic. It's great to see you, my friend, and congratulations on your graduation. Big news on your end here lately.
Yeah, thank you. It was very such an honor, and my family's just pleased. So thank you so much.
Tickled for you.
Today's about you. Let's talk about you. As you know, people who tune in, they're from all walks of life, different backgrounds, but we'd like to start out with an origin story. So can we get yours?
Origin story. So I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Very much a blue collar family. My grandfather was a foreman in a cement factory, and but I guess that whole upbringing in that environment, right, really taught me, I guess, a good work ethic. And as Woody Allen once said, right, 98% of success is showing up. And so really had that good upbringing, as a kid around show up, do what you said you're going to do, work hard. But growing up in Kentucky, I went to school at the University of Tennessee, was in economics and pre-med, started working in a hospital and figured out, wow, I really don't want to do what doctors do every day. And, as I was graduating, struggled to figure out what I would do next. And a lot of my parents' friends said, well, you've got a great personality. Maybe you should get into sales. And I thought, well, isn't that the reason you go to college, is so you don't have to go do that? And, but nevertheless, I went out and researched several companies, IBM, Xerox, Lanier, because they all three had some of the best training that was provided in the industry back in those days. And so I joined Lanier. So right out of college, I had to buy a van, Plymouth Grand Caravan with my own money. And I sold copiers door to door, out of this van. And, from there, we got recruited into the payment space with a company called Comdata Gaming Services back in the day, which has evolved to become Every these days. But I've been in the payments world for 25 some odd years, working with some of the world's largest organizations, helping them to implement secure payment platforms, but also helping them drive incredible customer experiences and loyalty for their customer base with some of the technologies that we deployed. And so most recently, to your point earlier, joined Global Payments in 2017 to turn the business around and really try to differentiate the product line that we were delivering, and have been doing that for the last 7 years. About a year ago, though, we completed a transaction with Parthenon Capital to carve out that company from Global Payments, and we've spent the past 12 months actually separating the business. And the team has done an absolutely amazing job of being able to stand up everything that's required for that company to be a strong, stable, independent company without a second's worth of downtime or, frankly, any major interruptions whatsoever. Testimony to just having a really good team around us to make sure that things happened correctly.
That's fantastic, and such a wonderful synopsis of a very, distinguished career. So we're going to try and touch on as many of those points as we can in today's show. But let's talk about the first pivot, right? Because you mentioned you pivoted. You were pre-med, and you were like, well, wait a minute. I think there are many people listening that are maybe at a point in their career where they're considering pivoting. As you consider all of the pivots that you made throughout your career, what are some lessons there that you could look back and reflect on that you say, boy, for those out there thinking about a pivot, here's some things to think through, or maybe some learnings that you learned along the way that you like to share?
That's a good question. I think it's one of those things where you got to follow your dreams. And I guess if I can take a giant step back, over the course of the last 7 years, Global Payments, Gaming Services, Pavilion, we'll just wrap it all into one. We've spent a bunch of time doing experiential learning projects with colleges and universities, giving these kids projects, allowing them to work throughout the semester on their project, coming back and delivering the results from that. And through that whole process, right, they really get executive exposure throughout the organization so that they can understand, right, what we're trying to accomplish. And then some of those kids we actually would bring in and they would do internships. So an internship with us was a full-on job. It's not like as an intern, your job is to go fetch coffee. It's truly, you are in the seat to deliver on the project, right? And so the ability for some of these kids to go through and actually experience something from ideation all the way through implementation, right? A lot of people don't get to experience that in their real careers, much less as an intern. But I tried to impress upon these kids, which is the same, I guess, for adults that are getting ready to make these pivots, is these little small investments in trying new things pay huge dividends. Because what's worse, right? Making that small investment and figuring out that there's a pivot, or saying, I really hate this, but I'm stuck here for the next 25 years. And so to me, the whole idea here and what this would boil down to is you've got to follow your dreams. I think that's kind of first and foremost. Secondarily, I think it really also starts with having really solid goals and objectives. There was a Harvard study, I think, done in the 70s that tracked Harvard graduates for 30 years, and they found that only a small portion of those Harvard graduates actually had written goals. But at the end of that 30-year tracking, those that had written goals out-earned the vast majority of the rest of all of those Harvard graduates combined. And so it really shows that having a goal is important. And then while you have the goal, understanding what are the mental assets that you need to acquire if you want to be delivering great customer service. What are the things that you need to know and understand to do that? If you want to deliver a great product, what do you got to know? And so going out and exploring and gaining those assets so that you can continue to set yourself up so that when those opportunities arise, when you can achieve, right, that next position, you're at least ready, right? Or you've got at least enough of a foundation to be ready.
So you've mentioned team before, and as you were talking through, these opportunities that you were given to interns, and sort of the things that you learned, the knowledge you developed along the way, what was coming to mind as you were talking through that is really the ability to be able to identify talent and being on the hiring side of it, right? You talked about it from the perspective of the person looking for their passion. What are some indicators to you about, so if someone's out there going, I'm really passionate about payments, or I'm passionate about, this particular, industry or this particular topic, how could they convey their desire and their passion for that in a way that the hiring executive can say, or maybe even open it up so that the hiring executive can tug on that a little bit and allow them to talk more about their passion? I think sometimes people, when they're in an interview situation, they're just answering the question instead of being who they are, and in the process of answering the question, displaying that passion. What do you look for when you are out there building your team? Because to accomplish what you just mentioned requires a strong team. How do you go about finding those passionate people?
You bet. Well, I think part of it starts really with high level open ended questions. What are you passionate about? Trying to get the folks to open up. Why are you passionate? Right? What are some of the things that excite you about? Because I think if we can ask the right questions, people will open up and share those transparent moments that get them out of just the 1,001 hardest interview questions that we could all pull up on Google at any given point. Um, and I think there are opportunities to through that conversation to get people to start to share stories about, tell me about a time when this particular thing happened or when you were excited about this particular aspect. And by getting them to tell the stories, you can start to hear what's important to them and be able to try to assess whether those folks are going to be, a great fit for the organization. But I would also say that having the right people also comes about in looking at people from different industries with diverse skill sets. Because we've had needless to say, in payments, in gaming, we could very much be highly focused on, I only want gaming people, I only want payments people. The challenge is, right, it's a big world out there. And just because we're in gaming doesn't mean that our end customer, right, all of those consumers that are happily enjoying their gaming entertainment, doesn't mean that the things that they expect when they come into a casino is going to be different than what they expect when they go anywhere else or deal with any other kind of an entertainment venue. And so part of what we wanted to do as well is bring in diverse skill sets from different industries with people who have rich capabilities to change the way we think about things and the way we do things, and bring those rich experiences to us so that we could just continue to get better and better and help to differentiate the solutions that we were trying to provide.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually, because the payments world is very exciting. The last few years, it's no longer just the singular sort of ATMs, check cashing, the traditional sort of payments world that 25 years ago everyone thought of when you mentioned payments in our industry. It really is integrated with a lot of other activities, not just gaming, right? Talk a little bit about what it was like being in the industry through all of those phases, and as it relates to putting together the team, as you pointed out, you may want a collection of people that have a specific vertical experience in a vertical, but also there is value in not having that, so that you can keep that dynamic range of development for the company. Can you talk through that? I mean, I know there is a lot to unpack there, but I feel like, especially where we're at today and with today's world and technology, there's just so much to talk about that's exciting in that space.
Oh, it's exciting, and it continues to grow and morph. I remember back in the day, we were launching a product with Best Buy to deliver incredible customer loyalty, which was, ultimately became Best Buy's secret sauce, in that mile-long receipt that you get when you check out was based off of all of your past purchases. So you start to think about, boy, this is 15 plus years ago, right? When data analytics wasn't what it is today, but the idea to start predicting what you should offer a customer based on all of their past purchases. So if you were a digital customer, right, I don't need to offer you VHS tapes or a VCR. I need to offer you something more down the path of like a Netflix downloadable kind of scenario. And payments was really at the core of all of that, because it's the thing that can help to provide the connectivity to household information in and around a particular customer. What are they spending across channels and across the various ecosystems, right? And all of those things then allowed the company to then go through and determine what are the right offers to make to this customer at this given time to help drive increased frequency and increased spend. Now you start to fast forward to even today, where things have just sped up dramatically with mobile, in the fact that it's now the number one screen in America. So you think about, now that that's replaced television, it's my access point for my data. It's how I manage my finances. It's how I do everything. And if there's an opportunity for us to be on the main deck of somebody's phone, right, that is an incredible billboard, that is applied there. And again, payments helps to tie all those things together, because it is the underlying trust platform that enables things. That is, as a consumer makes a payment, right? If I'm making a payment to Yamava, for example, you've got confidence that you've been paid and you can deliver services. Likewise, as a guest or a consumer, I know that my payment methods all have particular sets of rules and protections, so that if those services aren't delivered, I have a path for recourse. And so now that trust has been established, that there's a fair exchange, from that, all of these other loyalty aspects can be expertly delivered. So I think that stuff's continuing to change. Needless to say, as we continue to implement AI solutions that can more rapidly evaluate how all of these things are coming together, my behavior, my transactions, my purchases, etc., I can speed up the delivery of offers to where I think that provides value to both sides, the consumer as well as the merchant, to truly deliver something that has never been contemplated before. And then if we add one more piece to this, I think identity management is going to be the next big frontier as well, because like just this past week, I got a notification that AT&T had leaked my data out to the internet, and now I can sign up for a service to help monitor and protect. But the question becomes, now that we are a mobile society, we're an e-commerce society, how do you know that that it's truly Chris Justice coming into your mobile site, or somebody who has obtained my information from AT&T or one of the other thousands of places that have been breached? How do you know that that's not me? And there's a bunch of really cool technology coming around the identity space that you start to pull all of these bits and pieces together. There are some truly amazing things that the industry can deploy very rapidly to help deliver more value to the guest, help to improve the P&L by controlling risk and fraud, and making things just a lot safer for the whole community.
One of the things that I've always admired about you is that you think differently about today's world, right? You not only satisfy the need for today, but you're always one step ahead, thinking about what could happen. And that's exactly what you just said here, right? Like, until you connected the dots, I was like, where's he going with this identity thing? And then it was the aha. Oh, you know what? Because it's tied to all of these other activities that are related to payments. And oh, by the way, there's an opportunity there. And if you can take care of that issue, it strengthens your overall portfolio for what you're offering. But that's not something that a normal person would just automatically gravitate to. So talking about how do you stay ahead of the curve, and how do you keep that creative edge, so to speak, as you think through this, what sort of tactics or skills or methods have you developed along the way to not only remain sharp in what you're delivering now, but also be prepared and strategic about where we should go? And, for every one topic like identity, there's probably 10 others that are squirrel topics that won't really yield you anything, but like identity is a big one. And so, how do you kind of stay on the edge, but stay focused, and then sift through it and say, these are the directions we need to go? How did you develop those skills? Was that something you developed in yourself, or did somebody kind of help you along the way? Like, tell us how Chris does it.
Wow. Man, you should go on CBS and do this for a living with hard questions. Um, I guess I
Is it
don't remember it
conferences?
happening on purpose. But back in the day, years and years ago, I had we were doing 360 interviews for all of the senior executives, and one of the topics is around scanning, right? Scanning the industry, kind of scanning the universe, looking for opportunities and looking for trends and what have you. Um, in in a and I don't remember actually scoring necessarily high on that, but thinking just like any other report card, right? If I'm not making straight A's, here's the one I want to focus on, and I want to improve that particular area. So um, I think a lot of it has just really boiled down to looking at um, really where technology, loyalty, customer experience, and payments kind of all come together at that unique intersection, and trying to look at really, frankly, what are the biggest opportunities on one side and what are the biggest threats on the other, and making sure that I'm at least versed at a high level as to what are the things going on, and then um, frankly, as various headlines come up, those headlines start rising to the top for me, maybe more than they would for people who aren't paying attention um, to those particular topics. And then I just continue to kind of thoroughly read and go down those paths to really understand um, how do we validate customer identity, and especially, oh, by the way, right, let me tie this all back to the gaming industry. How do we do a better job of validating customer identity? Why is that important? With iGaming and sports betting and all of these other digital transformational initiatives going on in the gaming industry. And oh, by the way, right, our product is cash. I certainly better know exactly that the Peter Arceo that I think I'm talking to is exactly who I think it is. And identity starts to be a very critical component of that. And that starts to then cascade into responsible gaming. It starts to cascade into offers and loyalty and the ability of how we're going to communicate with these people. I mean, it's sort of a ball of spaghetti of thoughts, but they all really go back to how do I make sure that I am delivering what I want to deliver to this person at the appropriate time.
And is there a method for your strategic planning? I mean, are you one of those executives that has official strategic planning sessions, or is there sort of like a CRISP method that you've developed along the way? Thinking strategically is probably one of the most difficult skills to teach, right? And to get people to engage in, because people gravitate to the tactics of the day to day. Is there, how do you approach strategic planning for your organization, taking all of those concepts that you just talked about and being able to sift through it and find those opportunities? Now you got to go back and create a plan, right? Like, so you got this great idea, but now you got to go create this strategic plan and get buy-in from your team and board. So is there a method that you like to deploy for that?
Yeah, so our strategic planning process, we do an annual process, so it's really sitting down and trying to deliver the plan, which starts with what are the what's the objective that we want to pursue. Let's identify the threats, both internal and external, that we need to overcome. Let's figure out what resources we have to deploy in and around those threats, trying to identify what's controllable, uncontrollable, and then we'll go through that process on an annual basis, which sets out what typically the 3 to 5 hot projects that we're going to work on over the course of the year. And let's say over the course of the year, but every week on kind of a red, yellow, green light basis, the senior management team is coming back to say, well, where is their project? And so we can, at a very high level, just say, okay, well, great. What needs to be done to improve the yellows? but we're continually week after week working on those. On a monthly basis, that goes one level deep. So it's not just the 3 to 5 high levels, but it's the one deeps, two deeps from each of the individual projects. And then every quarter is typically a 2-day session where we're going back through looking at how did we do against what we had expected to do over the course of the last quarter. What would we want to do to improve on our performance for the next cycle? And then that resets the hots for what we're going to do quarter by quarter. So it's just a way to where we are continually navigating change. And I would say a little bit like the philosophy that a plane is off track 98% of the time, but they're continually making the right modifications to get to the planned airport. So we're continually doing those kinds of things to continue to make sure that we are at least on track through changing conditions and whatever else is coming ahead of us.
I love it. So you have the strategic plan and regular check-ins along the way to make sure you're aligned and on the right path. One thing that I've learned about you and struck me is that you care deeply about your clients and you consider their point of view and perspectives. I loved it when you would call and say, hey, I just need a few minutes to talk to you about something. How are you thinking through this? Or what do you think of if we do that? As part of your strategic planning process, how does that client feedback fit into that? And where did you learn that skill? Was that something that you carried over with you from your sales days, or was that something you developed later in your career? For those out there trying to think through how do I, take client interaction and not just for the sake of a sale, but also for the sake of strategic planning, how do you develop that skill, and what's your kind of thought process on that?
This is one I think I've worked on a lot over the years. And it comes from just having really great people, really great mentors around me around through the years. But I learned early on that great ideas can come from anywhere. So frankly, open door policy. So if somebody from the call center or wherever, wanted to come into my office and pitch an idea, great, I want to hear it, because it may not be the most brilliant idea, but it's the seed of an idea. And by sharing that seed of an idea with you and with others, we're going to care for it and nurture it and fertilize it and nurture it. And so what becomes from that idea could be amazing. And so I've tried to really carry that throughout my career. And then on the other, I think on the flip side, I think we've all experienced the fact that we get a great idea, we get so tunnel visioned around that idea, we spend all of the time, effort, and energy to just force it down a path. And then, as George Patton once said, no good plan survives first contact with the enemy. We've spent years and millions of dollars, and then I have the conversation. Hey, Peter, what do you think from this? Oh, well, it's dead on arrival because of these 3 reasons, because that won't work in my industry or with my company, et cetera, et cetera. Well, wow. What if we didn't go down and waste all that time and effort? We actually were able to have those collaborative conversations up front. So again, like the plane and its navigation, those are all of the headwinds or crosswinds that might cause us to want to slightly pivot. But then as we get to the finish line, the product that we're delivering or the service that we're delivering, frankly, really, really works. And you know what? You're actually one of those people that's taught me a lot about this as well over the last several years, as you talk about how to program a casino or how to program an idea, because just because it might be a great idea at the senior executive level doesn't necessarily mean that your high value customers want to use it the way that you've thought about it. And if we can think through and collaborate with them, they will help us deliver an incredible solution that is well thought through from end to end, that is fully integrated into the culture and into the capability of the organization. And we can deliver on that with grace and style. And frankly, it'll be a lot more successful.
Yeah, I love having those frank conversations, or even when you hire someone to do a focus group and you're behind the window listening, and you're like, oh man, it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes when you hear things, because you get emotionally attached to something, and then you hear like the opposite reaction. But it's through those uncomfortable moments that you get recharged and you get the team rallied around. All right, let's fix that, right? How do you turn a negative into a positive? And they gave us their time and their comments and their thoughts. What the best thing we can do now is to take that and give it its due diligence on it. Okay, there's something there. How do we turn that around? And yeah, the process, to me, I find it to be quite satisfying. And I recognize that early on with you. I was like, wow, Chris is really not just calling me to check in on me, but he's also calling me to have meaningful conversations about matters that could turn into something cool. So I love that process. And thanks for sharing that. Now, as we talk, let's shift a little bit to more about work-life balance, right? I know you're a guy that balances professional time as well as some family time as well. Work-life balance is sort of like this term that people hear today. It means a lot of things to a lot of people, but what does that mean for you, and how have you been able to balance your life however it means to you?
Oof. Well, as much as I think I've got incredible work-life balance, Sharon would argue the point, because it's one of those things where, right, when I am on, I am highly focused and aggressive in my pursuits, and so when that means that, right, left work and now it's time to go do whatever, I completely shift there as well. I would say, to me, the balance is more, and I feel like this even comes during the point in the day. It's around, I am with the person that I am with. So, when we're together, I am with you. I'm not paying attention to my phone. I'm not letting all of the chirping and the distraction that's going on around me kind of get in the middle of that. And that's what I try to do everywhere. And so that's probably, I guess, how I would say that, because I do find, by the way, it relaxing and comfortable, right, to engage in the conversations like we've had over the years, right? Whether they're all happy-go-lucky, or they get into some of those, like, what the hell are you thinking? That'll never work, uncomfortable conversations. I still find that comforting, because the whole time, right, the light bulbs are going off with, wow, this is something great that I learned today, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, I'm the same way, right? When someone says, how do you balance? To me, the balance is, there is no sides to balance. It just is, right? Life is life. And there are moments where I get, I'm might be at a restaurant with friends or colleagues or my wife, and I see something inspiring that I'm sorry, I can't turn it off, right? I'm like, this is inspiring. I got to go ask the server, what is that over there? Can you explain that to me? I just want to know, curiosity, right? And then
Yes.
then we have this whole conversation. It becomes a topic at the table, and it doesn't matter who's sitting at the table. We're all talking about it. And at the same time, I'm enjoying time with others. They're enjoying time with me. But at the same time, I'm getting new ideas for work, right? And so you can accomplish all these things. So, so to me, the term balance doesn't mean balance at all, because balance would assume that there's two sides that you need to make even. Well, to me, it's just, how do you live life to the fullest, and things will happen on all fronts. Just take it for what life gives you, right? So thank you for sharing your perspective on that. I know that a lot of people out there talk about, the work-life balance. And so I always like to hear what people's point of view is on that. Let's have a little fun here. Thinking, if you were to think back to your 20-year-old self, right? So going back 5 years to when you were 20 years old, what would you say to yourself when you were 20? Any bits of advice, wisdom?
I would say continue to try a lot of things. Experiment. Don't let good stand in the way of done. Try to accomplish things even if they're not right. Because I think that's part of the juice of life that allows us to figure out truly where our passions are. I would go back to kind of the experiential learning projects and engaged with all these college students over the last 7 years, where when you ask them the question, hey, what do you want to do? Right? These are sophomores and juniors in college. And they're like, yeah, I'm just hoping to graduate. I have no idea. Well, it's a big world, right? I mean, did you ever think that you would be in gaming when you were in school back in the day, right? I never thought I would end up here. I never even knew anything like what I've done for my career even existed. And the only way to figure that stuff out is to try new things and explore, take some chances and enjoy. But again, the second part is to always show up, be there, try hard, do your best, have an incredible work ethic, continue to have an incredible work ethic, and just keep forging ahead.
So I love it. And I'm gonna, I hope you don't mind if I share this one story that you told me.
Okay.
It kind of summarizes everything you just said, right? But with a little fun. Maybe you could tell the audience the full story, but you also love to be a photographer for sports, right? And you were telling me the story, and I would love if you could share it, of how you were in the right place at the right time, and when everyone went to one side of the field, you stayed in the end zone to take that magical photo, and you were the only one in there because you hustled and said, "No, I'm not going to get that shot. I'm going to get something else." And lo and behold, the play of the game came to you and you took that magic shot. And oh, by the way, this is all while you were a senior executive doing big things in payments. You still found the time to go and pursue that passion. Could you share that story real quick? Because I just found that to be fascinating. And really, when you were talking through this last segment, I was like, man, that's exactly what Chris doing that photography gig was all about.
Well, absolutely. So quite a few years ago, I started taking pictures with Peter Reed Miller, who's Sports Illustrated photographer, and went to a bunch of his seminars and what have you. And through that process, my fraternity little brother actually worked for Vanderbilt University, and Vanderbilt was hiring photographers to go, shoot their games. And so I'm a Tennessee graduate, and they hired me to go shoot the Tennessee Vanderbilt game at Neyland Stadium in Knoxville. And it's one of these. I mean, it is a very long day. You get there at 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. Probably there till 2 a.m, editing and getting shots back to the team. So anyway, we're down on that. And by the way that works is if your team wins, they want pictures of the handshake of the crowd. They want pictures of everything. If your team loses, it's like that game never existed, right? They're thinking about whatever the next one is. So, and Vanderbilt hadn't beaten Tennessee at home in 20, 30 years. And so anyway, fourth quarter, minutes left in the game. Vanderbilt apparently marching toward the end zone where I am, turns the ball over on downs. Tennessee takes the ball, and they're getting ready to hike and head back the other direction. Well, needless to say, that's a pivot point when everybody else gets up and all the other photographers go to the other end of the stadium so that they can get pictures of Tennessee's winning drive, and Tennessee was already ahead at the time. So they're all down on the other end, and I thought, well, Vanderbilt doesn't want these pictures. This game didn't happen, right? They were down, no big deal. So I sat in the middle of the end zone and was watching watching what was going on. The ref stepped in right before Tennessee snapped the ball and said, whoa, 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 hold on. After further review, they actually did make the first down. They reset the ball, and now Vanderbilt's driving back toward my end zone, and I'm the only one there. And they did a naked quarterback around the end, and he's coming right at me. And so I took the picture of him stepping across the end zone to give Vanderbilt the first victory in Neyland Stadium in decades. And so it's him in the back of the crowd and what have you. And, so I submit, I go through, take the rest of the pictures, right? The handshakes, the crowd, all the other stuff. And I send all these pictures in. I found out some number of months later that in the athletic facility of Vanderbilt, now they've got this huge mural that is that picture. Even to this day, they're still using that same picture in their advertisements for season tickets and all of these things. But, it just happened to have, one right place at the right time, but also all of the training and everything to make sure that I captured the moment as I had hoped to. So all worked out.
I know. It's so great, right? I mean, and I think for those listening, he's doing that while he's running big companies. He's a senior guy, just being successful, payments, progressing, and yet he found time to pursue that passion. And not only did it yield, side job, fun job, but also a moment like that, hustling, being there for the moment, thinking a little bit differently. Everyone zigged, you zagged. I mean, it's such a great story. Thank you for sharing that with the audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Today. What a great way to end. But we traditionally ask this question at the end of every podcast. And so I'm going to ask you, what are 3 tips you would provide to anyone who wants to take their career to the next level?
3, that's a good question. I think the first one I would say is provide leadership. Leadership doesn't have to be at the top, even though, right, the speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack. But when you think about leaders in the middle, right, each of those folks have their own pack. So be a leader there, create a vision, get people aligned behind the vision, encourage people, help them find a passion in what you're doing. Because if we're not all having fun, why are we wasting our time? But by being a leader at whatever level, you will suddenly start to develop a set of skills that are incredibly powerful as you continue to kind of matriculate on up through the organization. And I think I've already said a couple of these, but try new things, right? Experiment. Just because everybody says this is how it's done doesn't make it right. There are countless technologies, there are countless systems, there are countless companies that live and exist today and flourish today that tried something new and did something new. And those companies that did it the old way because that's how it always done, like Circuit City, like so many other companies who were the belle of the ball back in the day, they have absolutely vaporized because they didn't try new things, they didn't explore, they didn't meet the customer where they were. And then to me, the big one, show up, do what you say you're going to do, have integrity, make it happen.
Awesome. 3 great tips from a distinguished professional. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. Good to see you, my friend. I look forward to the next time we get together in person.
Oh, likewise, my friend. Thanks for having me on. Great to catch up with you.
Check out more episodes at thenextlevelcareers.com.